Welcome back to the Four Elements Press LGBTQ Authors Series. Today we are talking with Tracy Thomas, and we're going to be learning about her book and a little bit about her as a writer. Thank you for being here with us, Tracy. And if you want to introduce a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your work, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. So my book is called Playing It Straight. It is on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, and it is by T.M. Thomas. It tells the story of this girl, Lily. She is a college senior, and she thinks that she has everything in her life figured out. She is a cheerleader. She has the perfect boyfriend. Everything is just how it's supposed to be, picture perfect. And then one day she meets this girl and it's like everything gets flipped upside down and her entire world completely shifts in that one moment. And then she starts to question everything that she thought she knew and starts to wonder, is this picture perfect life actually the life I want? Is this everything that I actually am supposed to have? Or is my life supposed to be different? And she and Charlie start to develop this friendship. And as this friendship develops, Lily starts to question things more and more. And she obviously starts to develop feelings for Charlie, and those feelings are reciprocated. And so the story kind of goes through this internal struggle of, do I go along with everything that I am supposed to want, everything that people have told me my life to be, versus what I actually want and what I want my life to be?
Yeah. And it also kind of works in uh even interpersonal way too, because like sometimes we have an idea of what we want, and then sometimes we like get to that point and we realize that it might not be as we thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
how
Right.
does um how does the character kind of re like reflect, and then what do they kind of settle into?
So I've had people kind of upset with the ending. It is not a traditional happy ending,
Well, no
but
spoilers, right?
it's very open to interpretation. But it kind of leaves it up to the reader to decide what happens. But generally, at the end, it really goes along with Lily kind of figuring out what makes her happy and, you know, romantic relationships, friendships, family, all of that outside stuff kind of falls aside. And she really has to reflect internally what is going to make her happy and how does she live that fulfilling life, whatever that looks like for her. And it takes a while to get to that place where those outside factors are not part of the decision. And I think that's something that all of us are struggling with because those outside factors are always going to be there. And you have to kind of decide how much do you let that influence you versus how much do you kind of push that aside and look and figure out what you want for you.
Yeah. And does that kind of thought process also reflect your taking that step and actually writing and publishing too?
So I started this story probably like 3 years ago or more. And I started by writing a traditional romance. After reading one, like, oh, I can do something like that. And it was COVID and everybody needed a hobby. We were all kind of trapped inside. And then I started to write this story at the same time. So I'm doing both of them. And then I get pulled more into this one. And this one just keeps coming and coming. And I write this one. And so after some time, like, well, I'll do something with it later on, maybe when I retire, later on, later. And then I eventually decided, well, why does it have to be later? I should do something now. And I thought that this was something that people struggle with and trying to accept themselves and be okay with who they are. Why should I put that down the road when that's something that people are continuing to deal with now and I could do something to help now?
Yeah, and that thought process also is very closely tied, and the struggles that your character goes through with identity, really, um, are like so closely tied to just the LGBTQ experience in general.
Hmm.
Um, but also in life in general too, like with the expectations. How does your character kind of start to maybe experience and then accept like their queer identity?
So it takes a while, but eventually she gets to a place where she finds a really good therapist. And then she does a lot of work with herself. And then that therapist pulls in her family because when you don't have that family support, that's a really hard thing. And it's really hard to accept yourself when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally don't. And so I am a social worker by training, and so I really wanted to focus on the mental health aspect of everything, not because there is anything inherently wrong with being LGBTQ, but there are a lot of mental health issues that come with questioning yourself and not accepting who you are, and the poor self-esteem that can come, and not getting support from your family, and all of those things that are super complex. And I wanted to make sure that I handled that in a really delicate way because it all plays a role in who you are. And if you have people who are supportive, that's great. It completely changes your path. But when you have people who aren't, what does that path look like?
Yeah. And the social acceptance is a really big part of the LGBTQ experience in general, just from
Mm-hmm.
personal experience. But I like how you focus on the mental health aspect because a lot of the times in literature, we can write characters that might be experiencing things as we experience, or maybe experience them in a way that we saw a friend experience them, or even read in a different book. But to in when we're writing kind of in the LGBTQ literary genre, even if it's its own genre, but it's important to kind of be sensitive to these topics because we can also kind of get confused or ground down in our everyday experience and
Mm-hmm.
start to blame ourselves for a lot of the maybe struggles that we're having in our lives. But
Mm-hmm.
when we, through literature, call attention to mental health aspects and even like seeking help when we need it, it can take that weight of the me blaming myself off a little bit and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of get us in the right path of maybe seeking help if we need,
Right.
or maybe having that conversation with our family, even if it is a difficult conversation,
Mm-hmm.
just so that there's transparency. And sometimes you do have to give a little bit to get a little back.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you kind of focus on that and share that with readers because, as young people and as people in general who are always learning about ourselves, we need resources like yours.
Well, and being through it myself, being a therapist, seeing so many other people, acceptance doesn't happen in a blink. It's not like I can write a book and then in the next page have this magical epiphany where everything just magically comes together and life is wonderful. That's not how it really works. And it takes time and effort and work to get to that place of self acceptance. And I would love it if everybody could just feel good about themselves all the time and we didn't have any of these issues. But that's not how life works. And I think it would be unfair as a writer to write a book that just has all of those things disappear and not have to actually work through any of that.
Yeah, and it is also easy to kind of as a writer fall like have your characters kind of fall into being more reactionary than drivers in their own
Hmm.
stories.
Hmm.
So thank you for that approach. And was that when you were writing your character, were you conscious of like the active role she was playing in seeking help, or did she get to that place in kind of a combination of reactionary experiences and also driving force?
It was mainly reactionary because I have in my career encountered tons of people who don't think that mental health is valid. And if you have a family who doesn't think that like depression or anxiety are real, then it's really hard to get to a place where you are willing to seek help. And so then you have other outside factors like friends or teachers or whoever telling you, no, this is real, how you feel matters, all of that stuff, you start to shift that perspective. And so the family that she grew up in was very much the traditional, like, don't let anybody see what's going on the inside, smile through it kind of family. And so she would not be the kind of character that would seek out help on her own. And so with prodding of friends and other people throughout the book, then it so slowly shifts to a point where she starts to get her own thoughts about it instead of the thoughts that were given to her by her family.
Yeah, so like through the self-reflection after everything she's learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. And that shows also the power of like the social groups that we put ourselves into.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten good feedback from the book as well from like readers who might be struggling with mental health?
Um, there have been people who have been very um, positive and said that they see a lot of themselves in the main character, but other people who have not loved the endings, like I said, because it is a little bit messier and the characters are messy, absolutely. And I did that purposefully because life is not as simple as sometimes we like to make it. And I know sometimes we go to books because we want to escape that. But when tackling a subject like this, that was purposely about coming out and kind of exploring that side of yourself and discovering your sexual identity and all of that stuff, I didn't want it to be as clear cut as other rom coms.
Yeah, and that can be a testament to just LGBTQ romance in general.
Right, right.
It's it's more than just a like relationship. It's a political statement.
Mm-hmm,
It's a social statement. It is a target for people in a lot of different areas. And
mm-hmm,
to um to write about it from that perspective too, because it takes a lot of strength to also kind of engage in a LGBTQ relationship. It takes a certain level of um, security in yourself, security in who you're with,
mm-hmm.
and a level of it comes with a level of fear
Uh-huh.
that like other couples might not experience in the way that gay couples do. And I
Mm-hmm,
think also in ways that families now are more accepting in general
mm-hmm,
of maybe the individual
mm-hmm,
being gay, but then maybe not so much them being in a gay relationship.
mm-hmm,
Or, yeah, like this person in my family is in a gay relationship. I'm obviously an advocate, but I'm not supporting that them in other ways or supporting
Hmm.
the community in other ways,
Right.
or maybe even like going against them in many ways.
Hmm.
And but they can feel good about it because they have someone in their family and they love that person.
Right. Hmm.
Do you have any experience with that in the novel or maybe even in your practice?
Um, well, uh, so the book is very, not very, but it is similar to my own experience. I didn't, so I grew up in a very small town. No one was gay. It just wasn't a thing. There was one person who was out throughout all of high school. And I didn't really even give myself to the opportunity to think about anything else until I got to college. And I started to see other people who were queer. And I was like, this is interesting. Hmm. And then I started to actually like think about it and explore myself. But going along with what you said, like my family was always that like, oh, it's okay, we support people, you know. And they like, told my brother growing up, it's okay if you're gay to him. Well, when I came out, it was a very different situation. And so like it took a very long time for things to change and get better and for my own family to kind of accept things. And so it's one of those things where people can say it and they can talk the talk, but when it comes down to it, are you actually going to show up? And so it, I've had experience with it personally. I've been with my wife almost 10 years now, like married 10 years, almost 10 years together.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so then the next layer is when you add in kids, and we have two kids. And so that is another thing too, because there are the people who think that queer couples shouldn't have kids and all of that stuff. And so it's not something that is just like a one and done thing. It's something that is an ongoing forever kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. On the channel, we talk about the experience of coming out as like a daily thing because really, like, it's a daily thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you work in a position where you're meeting new people every day
Mm-hmm.
and who like want to work with someone authentically,
Mm-hmm.
um, but even like, oh, how was your weekend? Like
Uh-huh.
that type of question is a coming out question because
Right.
we're with our partners. Our life is with our partners. Like,
Right.
and then with children, like to they get questions too. And then they
Mm-hmm.
might get more questions than we actually get because other adults feel that they can ask questions that they wouldn't ask another adult to a child,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of ridiculous and sad. But um, so as a parent, have you did you write a little bit about that experience in this novel, or is that something that you would consider writing in the future?
That that isn't touched in this one because it is focused on someone who is in college. Um, However, there have been people who have asked for a sequel, and if that happens, then that is something that could definitely be potentially touched upon there or in future books. But that is in itself a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and it's a book that I think is going to be more necessary too because more LGBTQ couples are going to be raising children, are going to
Mm-hmm.
be, and then more children are going to be raised in LGBTQ households. So
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be way more communication and way more discussion going on within society. And well, thank you for helping it be a part of the literature as well.
Thank
And so now you have your practice, and you mentioned COVID as being kind of like the catalyst for
you.
finishing this book and getting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Were you always very interested in writing?
Yes. So I would write short stories and things like that throughout like middle school and high school. And then college happened and there wasn't really time for creative writing because you have to do other things. And then there wasn't really space when I started working to do that creatively. But then with COVID, everything stopped and we needed hobby. And so with that extra free time, I was kind of pulled back into something and I was like, wow, I really love this. I used to do it when I could just do things that I loved because I loved it. And now I can do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And a lot of times as writers, and even, if we don't see ourselves as writers, for parts of our life, the living part of of our lives is what
Mhm.
actually gets us kind of the content or
Mhm.
data to craft these types of novels. Because um, I always was, I always like thought like I'm going to write when I have like something to say.
Uh-huh.
And that point I think comes at some point in everyone's life, whether it be sooner or later.
Mhm.
But really the key to it is just finishing it.
Mhm.
How was your experience in writing the book? Did you set like outlines or did you kind of just go into it?
So I had slight outlines, like I knew vaguely what I wanted to happen in each chapter, like main themes, and then it would just kind of develop as it went. Um, but it was just getting it done and getting it to the place where I was actually like, okay, this is done. That is what took forever.
Yeah, the thousand rereads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then so getting it to that place takes effort, time, dedication. What were your thoughts on like self-publishing, publishing? Where did you start your kind of search and how did you settle into the route that you took?
So I looked into the traditional publishing route and I queried a bunch of agents trying to get representation. And then after rejections and all of the things that happen with traditional publishing. And then I did more research and realized that only about 1% of books are traditionally published. And so it was a very small number. It was very hard to break into. And at that point, I had no social media presence. Apparently, I was supposed to be like doing things on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere while I was writing a book. I had no idea. And trying to build a following before I even public. Who knew? You guys should do that. But I did none of that. And that's one of the questions that agents ask when they query. It's like, how many followers do you have? None. No one. So no one wanted to take a chance with my book because it probably wouldn't have paid off. There was no built-in following or no built-in reader. Um, and so after a while, I was like, well, this is something that I can revisit when I retire. And then,
Oh,
and then I was like, or maybe I shouldn't wait and I should just do it now. And so then I started to do the research into the self-publishing.
yes. Well, we definitely appreciate you sticking with it and not waiting until retirement. But that is a very real experience. To just hear that you were querying and that you were actually asked follower counts and stuff like that, and then turned down maybe because of it. Like that is insanity to the point that it really shows that maybe our concept of traditional publishing and our concept and belief in these big five publishers or even independent publishers who are looking for, I guess, more of a profit motive.
Mm-hmm.
rather than to build a community and like contribute to the culture. Um, it shows us that there is a route for people who are interested in sharing their voice and in taking on the publishing industries because um, they're interested in follower counts. That's not
Mhm.
literature.
Right. And I was just interested in telling a story that other people could maybe see themselves in or connect to or feel heard by. I I would love it if it became a movie and became a blockbuster and all of that stuff, of course. But
Oh,
I really just want people to like feel seen. And if that's not what other larger publishers are looking for, then the smaller voices or the marginalized voices aren't going to be the ones that are traditionally published.
yeah, and in in my research and my querying, I also encountered um, a a tough market for just LGBTQ books when submitting to these top publishers, and
Mm-hmm,
even when submitting to independent publishers and agents,
mm-hmm,
because they're first booked. Like you have to wait 6 months until they maybe look at your piece and then tell you
mm-hmm,
no, or not even tell you anything.
mm-hmm,
And then even the programs that like one of the top five publishers has through their Canadian division for LGBTQ submissions is pretty much an empty mailbox that nobody looks at.
mm-hmm,
So there is a lane and there is a self-driven and more also kind of in line with what the American spirit used to be, which is like individualism and being a
mm-hmm,
self-made person and um, being able to be a part of the economy. The free market is what it was used to be called.
mm-hmm,
But now it's all monopolies.
mm-hmm,
So part of like our press and then part of what we see self-publishing as is, taking back that democratic spirit that, we've kind of lost.
mm-hmm,
And books are supposed to be like the cultural like cornerstones. Like they're
mm-hmm,
supposed to be what speaks to the deepest issues and what also offers the greatest solutions. And if for us, that is just like a kinder world where where we ourselves are represented in literature,
mm-hmm.
that's so easy. It sounds like it'd
Right,
be so easy,
right, right.
but yeah.
But it's hard also knowing when you look at the New York Times bestseller list, part of the criteria is that you have to be traditionally published. So the independent authors who are working so hard and who have great messages and great things to say, even if you sell a ton of books, will never make it on there. And so only a certain voice is getting to decide who is really leading that literature. And I don't know who gets to decide those voices. Clearly, the people at the top, but all of those other voices aren't there then.
Yeah, and at the top, and then all the way at the shelf level,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
bookstores, libraries, it could be if it's traditionally published, like it could still be denied.
Uh,
It's it's
yeah.
tough out there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But two, and speaking to how those those agencies were speaking with you about, you know, well, you maybe should have been on TikTok or maybe should have been on Instagram. Like, I get that, but like, two, it's a lot easier to speak about your message and your book and about being an author when you have the book like to show.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, they don't want to invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then like we also have to survive. So
Right.
where's the balance?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
we're finding it. But it is through connection.
Hmm.
And that's what we are focused on, like through this channel, connecting readers with books that they're represented in. So do you have some kind of plans for a sequel or any other book maybe coming out that we could be looking on the lookout for?
Um, so I don't currently have plans for a sequel. That is maybe something that would happen down the line. The next book that you would see is completely different.
Oh,
And it is more of a psychological thriller that would span a 10-year timeline and take you through the relationship of this woman and her husband and how they met and everything until the relationship ultimately falls apart and she kills him. And you would have to decide, is it a valid reason to kill someone?
that okay. The psychological thriller aspect is awesome. Awesome, awesome. And I like how you also like leave the endings kind of open because it is very much in the vein of a lot of like traditional American authors who we've read historically. Their endings are kind of more like ambiguous and like supposed to be interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
How do you strike that balance with the ending and how do you decide like, okay, this is done?
So with playing it straight, in my mind, I see three different potential endings. And so I'm not going to tell you what they are, but
Right, right.
it is like the first love, um, you know, very strong feelings, like this is my person kind of thing. And then I want the reader to decide, at the end of the day, based on your experiences, sometimes we end up with that person. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes that person is still like in the background of our lives. Sometimes they're still very much present. You decide based on what happened because I read a lot of books in addition to writing. And so many romance books, it's always like the epilogue, blah, 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 and they get married. And
Mm.
sure, that's great. And we all love the happily ever afters. But if I'm writing a book that is more aligned to real life, I don't want it to just be wrapped up with a nice, neat little bow because, like I said, this was messy. And to just have it be nice and neat at the end doesn't really fit with everything that came before it.
Yeah. And there you have to like be realistic for the character's time frame too, because,
Mm-hmm.
not often in a year or two does like our whole world change and we're like happy and everything's good for the rest of our lives.
Right, right.
I like that. Yeah. What else? So you mentioned that you read a lot. Do you
Yes,
read like kind of heavily in the genre that you write in, or do you kind of like read widely and then what you write is what you write?
I am mostly into romance and thrillers, and those are generally the ones that I write as well.
Yeah. Very exciting. And also very marketable right now. They're very hot.
So then I just need to edit and get them out there. Editing is my worst nightmare, but
Yeah.
yeah, necessary.
So your second book, you're pretty close to the end then?
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're looking to like edit. Are you self-publishing this one as well?
Most likely,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
well, we'll definitely have to have you back on to talk about that and maybe even before you release it or when you do your cover.
Okay.
Yeah. And because we talk about how to really help authors get their works out there,
Mhm.
What was your experience with self-publishing and like what platforms did you use?
So I went through Amazon because it was the easiest that I could find. Others will say other ones are easier. I went with what was most widely available. Um, and then I just started to go on Instagram and TikTok and tell everybody. Um, and I'm sure there are other ways to market. People will ask if I have a marketing plan, and I say nope. And I just kind of go and tell people about it if they will listen.
Yeah. And do you now Amazon, it is the monopoly of where most books are sold.
hmm
We know this. And it does have a great, easy system to use. Ingram Sparks is another one a lot of people
hmm
use. Um, I do use both just so that we make sure it's in every market at least.
hmm
Um, and then did you do like the paperback, hardcover, ebook, all
I
that?
I did paperback and ebook.
Yeah. Now, have you tried audiobook or do you have plans for that?
I would love an audiobook. I most of my reading is through audiobooks, but I have not figured out how to tackle that yet.
Yeah, it is another hurdle. And I think requires a little bit more logistics than just writing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then a lot of our authors do have a lot of success at like in-person events too. Have you had experience doing any of those?
I have not. My book came out in June with Pride Month, and I have really just been looking online for social media, and I haven't figured out how to transition to more in-person things yet, but hopefully it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sometimes with fall coming around, they do a lot of like vendor shows and
Mhm.
different community fairs and stuff. So it could be somewhere to look at.
Yes, yes.
Some of the other authors that we've interviewed have talked about their experiences and some of they always post, they have such fantastic like banners and stuff to put behind them. I'm not there yet, but it's very inspirational.
More things for me to put on my to-do list. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, having a family, how has your family like received the book and have they read it? I know it's not always easy.
um, so I did not tell my mom about it. Uh, but other people have told her that is fine. And my wife has read it. My kids get very excited because we were at another friend's house and they bought it. And my oldest is like, then she grabbed it and she was like, Mommy, you wrote this. They're reading your book. And so that is like the best thing when your kids are so excited and proud of you.
Yeah, and to show them that like you can set your mind to something. You can want something. You can
hmm
work really hard at it and like it can be produced for you.
hmm
And that's something that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And then
hmm
you're only going to be growing as a writer.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How has your wife liked it?
She has been like the number one supporter. She has been like, okay, so I've looked it up. You need to do this. You need to do this. All right, this is next. What about this? And so she has kind of like taken over as like a PR manager and everything. And she's like, okay, now are you doing this? Have you posted today? And like definitely the hype team.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We all need someone like that in our lives,
hmm
especially when putting books out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm gonna see if we can add your book to the bookshop list. I
Okay.
think it goes mostly through like the Ingram Spark system, but I'm gonna check it out.
Okay.
Um, Otherwise, I'll have the link to your book on Amazon
Okay.
in the article and in the description below. And then I'll also share your socials there.
Okay.
And if you have a website, I'll put that there too so everyone can follow.
That's a work in progress as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll update your author section on the LGBTQ author directory
Okay.
when you get that going. So
Okay.
just stay in touch with that. Do you have any other messages for maybe young queer people out there or people out there who are just like experiencing feelings or maybe interested in writing?
For the young queer people, definitely find your people. If you have people out there who are not supportive and who are not on your side, they are not your people. And I know it's hard, and I know that sometimes that means walking away from people, but there are people out there who will be 100% on your side, and those are the people that you need to find. That's what you deserve in your life. And then for the people who are writing, just do it. You may think it's not good enough, or you may doubt yourself, or there may be days that you don't want to, but do it anyway, and you never know who is going to find your words meaningful.
Yeah. And please, if you are watching, reach out to us here at Four Elements Press. I'm sure Tracy is very responsive too.
Yeah,
We're looking to help. We're looking to connect and really build a community. So thank you everyone for watching. You can find the full interview and the video in on the LGBTQ authors article site on Four Elements Press. You can shop Tracy's book, and then we'll have Tracy back for maybe a reading and then to talk about her second book too. Thank you so
awesome.
much for watching. Take care.